Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight into it. So today I'm going to respond to an email a brother sent me almost a year ago to this date about not if he should join a camp per se, but just my perspective on camps. And I remember on the Kendrick Lamar video, I did kind of go into a little bit of it then. But now I want to kind of bring this out because in my response, I said that I may do a lesson on it, but I never got around to doing it. So I do want to touch on a few things. First of all, first things first. Let's get a few things addressed right here at the beginning. I am not currently a part of a camp. I'm not a camp, quote unquote, camp hater. I'm not against camps. I don't think that you're going off if you in a camp. And if a brother that's in a camp, I would go bring it out with some brothers in a camp right now. And I have no problem doing that. And I'm not saying that because it sounds good or I'm just trying to kowtow to, I'm not trying to you know what I mean? Just trying to kiss nobody's behind or nothing by saying that. That's genuinely how I feel about it. I think, but all at the same time, I'm definitely not someone that is the biggest quote unquote camp supporter either. I think that the whole situation with camp and when it comes to us as brothers and sisters in the knowledge of the truth, I do think that there are many different pitfalls and downfalls of this system that we have created. And I think that it's the whole camp system that we have is starting to create its own culture, its own, I don't know, even the word apt to be used here would be religion of its own. Like a lot of y'all don't really understand this. And let me be the bearer of bad news to you. The moment you accept the term Hebrew Israelite as a doctrine, you have then accepted that you are part of a religion, for the lack of better terms. You might as well put it in that same category as a religion because the word Hebrew Israelite is not found in the Bible even once. Okay, show me where those two terms, Hebrew and Israelite, is put together. It's not found not once. Okay. We know Paul said he was the Hebrew of Hebrews. He was an Israelite. I get it. But there is no Hebrew Israelite in the Bible. And again, a lot of times people hear this and they have a problem with it because now they think you saying a host of other things that you are not saying. They make a ton of assumptions. Oh, you one of these, if they'll go as far as, oh, you you try to save other nations. You trying to say, no, man, it's just the truth. And that's why I always say like quote unquote truth and stuff, because man, y'all be saying the truth. But when it comes to something like this, a lot of y'all just can't handle it. So you really not of the truth. You don't like dealing with what's actually the truth. And only Yahweh Shai is the truth. So therefore, can we really say in the truth? But either way, I still say it because I know what brothers mean when they say that, meaning that they are repentant. Well, not just a repentant Israelite, but you are a so-called black man or woman that has accepted the scriptures and has repented, and you know that you are an Israelite. So I get it. I'm just saying that when you say Hebrew Israelite, excuse me, and you know that is not in the Bible, but someone asks you, what's your belief system? And you say, I'm a Hebrew Israelite, or you got that in your bio right now, you on your social media accounts or what have you. Just to tell you, just to let you know, you have accepted a doctrine. Therefore, again, it might as well be just like any other religion from a certain standpoint. And when I say religion, like let's look up the word religion to see what we get when we put up religion. Okay. Let's see. Religion, a personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices. We know that when it comes to the scriptures, it's not the modern day version of a religion, right? We understand that. But that's why you should have a separation to me between a your doctrine that you accept that is the scriptures. So there should be a separation between the scriptures and then everything else. So if you say Hebrew Israelite or the Hebrew Israelite community, this, and that, now you've created another boundary, another barrier between the scriptures. Now you're not going directly to the source now, because there are plenty of things that quote unquote Hebrew Israelites believe that is not in the scriptures at all. You know, most things that most camps, I believe the same thing that literally most camps believe in. So it's not like it's something like just, I don't know, like I'm not saying brothers just out here just making up a whole bunch of stuff, but even if it was 80-90%, that 10 to 20%, or even if it was 99%, it don't matter. Even that 1% of what's been accepted by quote unquote Hebrew Israelites, that's not the truth. But since we've accepted that doctrine, that set of beliefs, like it says here, or that system, well, now we have created another boundary between the scriptures. And this is the same thing that we accuse the Christians of not believing the scriptures and not going straight to the scriptures and having their own belief system. But a lot of us do the exact same thing. We do the exact same thing. We don't challenge anything. Not when I say challenge something, a lot of people do challenge things from the standpoint of just saying a bunch of crazy stuff on the internet. You can't eat turkey and all this different stuff. I'm not saying that, but from the standpoint of like a lot of our main doctrines are never challenged. It's not fleshed out because you're just taught to believe a certain thing. You got to pray to the east, but I haven't seen a strong foundation on that yet. Reincarnation, that's another heavy quote unquote Hebrew Israelite doctrine. What else? I don't know. Trying to think. There's just a lot of different doctrines that's out there that, I personally do not believe in. And I think that once you attach yourself to being called a quote unquote Hebrew Israelite, then I think that you befall yourself to these things. So let's actually look at the email here. The brother said, "Dear David, beloved, peace, brother. I hope all is well. Apologies for the long email message. Peace to you too as well, brother. And I pray you still doing well. I had a question about camps. I am a loner by nature, me too, and I tend to study and research on my own. You and KLJ 144 are the main individuals I reference for biblical knowledge, including historical information." Well, I want to tell you up front, I appreciate that, brother, for sure. Just, using me as a source for, or a reference, I should say, to be able to grow your own knowledge and wisdom. That's the whole point of me being here, not so I can say I'm a leader of this or I'm this or that in the flesh, or I'm, what have you. I'm just here to share information so we all can, build our own knowledge, wisdom, and discernment up. All right. You have another source for that. That's all that I'm here to do. None more, none less. I am not much of a military type. And by the way, KOJ 144, he's referring to the brother Chronicles of Judah. That's what the COJ means. 144. You can find him on YouTube and also Patreon too as well. I believe that if you are a man, so-called black man, that's looking to further your knowledge, wisdom, and discernment too as well, you should definitely subscribe to his Patreon and go to his YouTube page there as well. All right. Brother said, I am not much of a military type. I like my individuality and freedom to learn. I have that same spirit. So that's exactly why I have my perspective that I have about camps. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. I keep Sabbaths and feasts by myself, but I know having the holy convocations are necessary. My friend passed by one of the camps in my area, street teaching. I am always in my apartment on the Sabbath, so I had no idea they were up the street. I conversed with the brothers, and they were welcoming, I had my fringes on. Our praises. I attended a session today and it went well, but some of the teachings were off. For example, he says regeneration, which is what I touched on earlier. This one is a big problem for me. And, all false doctrines are false doctrines, but the regeneration, aka reincarnation, that's such an issue for me. Not just because it's a false doctrine to me, but because it promotes man worship or promotes idolatry from the standpoint of thinking that you are more than what you are. And I think that's a big issue with us, since we think that we're prophets now in the flesh, or we think we so and so in the flesh. It causes us to think more of ourselves, which means that we become idolatrous. And then also we can't get down to the truth because of these things. And we put men on pedestals, and it just makes it harder to fully understand the scriptures when you have those types of stumbling blocks ahead of you. So he says a slight error in the tribe of Israel associated with the Spartans/Dorians and the all-encompassing Native American Hispanic grouping. This is also a major doctrine that most camps believe in that I do not. I do not believe that everyone in Mexico is of the tribe of Issachar. And yeah, I made a blanket statement. I said everyone in Mexico. You know what I mean? Not literally, but I don't think every quote unquote Mexican or most quote unquote Mexicans are Israelites. Okay, I don't think most quote unquote Native Americans are Israelites. I am not what you call a quote unquote Negro only Israelite. And I think that's anyone that doesn't hold that exact belief that most brothers that are in camps believe, they'll just group you as a quote unquote Negro only Israelite. I'm not that either. I'm not someone that goes by skin color only. But with the thing that kind of gets me about this is that I don't understand how you are labeling someone off of their skin color in their appearance if they're Mexican and saying that they are the tribe of Issachar, but then you try to shame someone that don't believe that by saying, oh, you're a Negro only Israelite, when that's the exact same thing that you're doing. Is hypocrisy to me. What I believe is that most people that we call today that are quote unquote black are the descendants of the Israelites of the book. And then there are groups from all quote unquote other nationalities, including the Native Americans and including all the Hispanic groups that are Israelites too as well, that are there in the spirit that you may or may not be able to tell by the flesh. But I don't believe just in general all quote unquote Native Americans are Israelites. And I don't believe in general all Hispanic nations are Israelites. I don't think that most of the quote unquote Mexicans that you look at are Israelites. And it's not just by their skin tone. It's also by the different features that are given to most so-called black people. Okay. Only the spirit can bear witness. So yeah, I believe that a lot of the quote unquote Mexicans are Israelites, but the problem is us putting them into one actual tribe when we know or we should know that all tribes have been scattered. We don't really know what tribe we're in. We don't actually know that. All so-called black men are not actually Judah. And then Benjamin isn't actually that Haitians, and Levi isn't actually this and that. Is this That's ridiculous. It's like we playing make believe or something. I don't believe adults and we call ourselves in the truth, but we playing make believe with our tribes. It's crazy. Now, with that being said, if you like Brothers Chronicles of Judah, his username is includes one of their tribes, Judah. I'm not saying that like if you had that as your tribe name or something, I don't know. I mean, one of my usernames is Tribe of Judah, somewhere that I started a long time ago before I really came to this understanding. But at the same time, when you truly know or you truly understand that about the tribes, then we got to stop playing make believe. So I don't like that aspect about most camps that I know of. Okay, because most camps that I know of, they believe that all Native Americans are Israelites, and most of the different Hispanic groups are Israelites. That deserves its own video. Why I don't believe that, I would say. However, that's one of the biggest issues that I have. So that's my thing. It's not that I just hate camps or I think that they just off just stupid dumb off and they're gonna send us all to oblivion, to the lake of fire. But it'll be hard for me to congregate on a day-to-day basis with brothers that have this same belief. Because like Jake say nowadays, I would just be cringed out. Like just looking at those signs every day where brothers are saying that, I'll be like, this is whack, because I don't actually believe that. So, I would have to find a congregation of brothers that has similar beliefs or something else, because again, most don't believe that. And if you do say these things, you normally, castigate it out out the group, because from what I see, most brothers do believe that, because that's what we taught. How do they say it normally? Native Americans, Hispanics, and blacks are the Israelites of the Bible, or however we say it normally. That's just what most brothers believe, because that's what's been parroted. But no, I don't believe so. And most of I've seen the videos, I've seen the historical evidence. Trust me, like I've seen these things too. I'm not someone that hasn't been exposed to the information, but I believe that most of the time when brothers are looking at these things, they're not getting a full context. They think they know what they're looking at, but they really don't. Like when you see the evidence of the Israelites in Mexico and things, that doesn't match up to the same people that we see there now. We have to understand that people migrated and have moved over thousands of years. All right. The same people that you see today have not always inhabited those lands. I mean, the big, like I'm just focusing on Mexico now, but it really goes for any of these countries. Like, for example, in Mexico, we know that you have the, matter of fact, I'm gonna just go to them real quick. So like the El Negro Olmec monumental stone sculpture, excuse me, in Mexico, or you have like El Zonga, like these different things. Again, look at his features. It's not just that it says El Negro here, which we know Negro means black. All right. And it's not just that in his features. I mean, I just believe these people, the Olmecs, they would look closer to the so-called black man today, not to the mestizo, or aka the Mexican of today, which has clearly been an admixture. The people called Mexican today are clearly an admixture. All right. So that's why I say that. Like, I have my own evidence too as well. All right. And again, these people, I mean, the El Negro was said to be, I said to have been there since when? Like 1200 BC or something like that. I believe those people were there before what we got there today, or the people that are there today, that live there today, that quote unquote Mexican or call themselves Mexican. So for someone to say just blanket Mexicans are from the tribe of Issachar is crazy to me. But that, again, that's not the only ones. I mean, we could keep going there for sure. We definitely could keep going there if we pulled up the 12 tribes chart, and then we look at the corresponding people from the different tribes. Now, and there's just so much confusion with that 12 tribes chart too, as well. Like, well, I mean, we could keep going, but again, we need another lesson on it. And that's one I plan on making. But I don't believe that. So I'm right here with you, brother. Like when I read this, I was like, man, this is a brother I probably could see myself, actually communicating with, because I would have been the same way. He said a slight error in the tribe of Israel associated with the Spartans and Dorians. And, that's also another thing, is that you do have to be a brother that really cares about history, right? In connection with the scriptures, and trying to make those two connect to the best of your ability. Because if not, if you just someone at Deuteronomy 28, Negroes or Israelites, you need to repent. We cursed and all of that. If that's just all you talk about, that's all you think about, and you don't want to go into the history and things like that, then it's also not someone I'm going to want to associate with every day. I mean, some brothers just want it to be that simple, but it's just not. And that's cool. But either way, I just think it's a lot easier to take out the nuance and say, the Hispanics and Native Americans are Israelites and black people are Israelites. It's a lot easier to say that, because it's way less nuance. But is that really the truth? Have you really looked into that yourself? Does it actually make sense that so-called black people end up creating people that don't look like them? Again, I'm not going just by skin tone, because we know that there are so-called black people that are Israelites, or at least fathers that are light skinned. They get with a so-called white woman, and we know that the seed goes by the man, but the child looks pretty much undistinguishable from a so-called white person, but they're Israelite by blood because of the father. I mean, take Blake Griffin, Drake, and the opposite is like a Bob Marley, or I always forget her name, the Nipsey Hussle's woman before he passed, where those two examples, so the latter two are not Israelites, but they look just like a regular so-called black man. Or Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle looks like just a standard so-called black man, but he was a Hamite. So, I'm not going just by skin tone and just by features, just from a bloodline standpoint. I don't think all of those people are Israelites. I don't. Now, some of them may have the seed line within them. And I believe some of the ones that join the camp that have the understanding, they could have that lineage within them. I'm not saying that none of them are, but I don't think that most of them are. I just don't. That's just from my perspective and my belief from what I research and what I understand about history. I don't believe that to be the case. I think it's actually quite ridiculous. And some of the scriptures that brothers use for it is also ridiculous too. Man, I want to go into it, but I know how I get. I'm gonna mess around and it's gonna be like 20, 30 minutes of just talking about this, and it really just needs its own lesson when we fully dive into it. But either way, that's just one of the many things that I don't believe in that most brothers do that are in camps where, I just would really, I couldn't really see myself just on a day-to-day basis. I know plenty of brothers that believe that. And when they say it, I don't try to correct them and that, because it's their prerogative to believe what they believe, just like it is from mine. So, ain't nothing like that, just talking to you and everything. But as far as like us going on another level, like we bringing things out together and we supposed to be a one body, then, that's where things change. But to continue on the email, he says, on a positive note, it is a great community. And that's the best part about being in a camp to me. Just from the outside looking in, it would be the community, just being around other brothers that are at least for the most part similarly alike, But speaking of that, my perspective is not just like when I'm looking at someone that's like-minded, it doesn't stop with me with you believing you're an Israelite. That's not like-minded to me. If you wear fringes, that doesn't make you like-minded to me. You wear fringes, you believe you're an Israelite, and you have a Bible. That doesn't make you like-minded to me. There's a lot of different things going on to where I have to truly feel that we are like-minded. You know what I mean? Like a lot of brothers that appear to be straight, they just don't be. When you really get around them and you really see how they are with the woman and with money or different things like that, they just don't be as solid as what you would think they are. So that's another thing. I'm just a true believer that the more individuals you get, the bigger the crowd, the dumber the crowd. I'm a true believer in that. And I don't believe that you just get 100 men. Let's not even go that far. I mean, I'm going to just keep it a buck with you. I don't believe you get 10 men together and then you just got 10 righteous men. If the only criteria that it was to be in that organization was to believe you an Israelite, even if you have similar belief systems. I don't believe that's the criteria it takes. Now, that's just me, though. In the way that I view things and the way that I am, I know it's different from other brothers. I understand that, but that's just how I am. And maybe that's the reason why I am a business owner. And, I've worked for myself only for 7 years? Yes, 7 years now. This year just made 7 years that I haven't clocked in anywhere. And maybe that's why. Maybe I just have that type of spirit to where, I just look at things a certain way, and I get that other brothers are definitely not like that. I understand that, but that's just me. So I'm just giving my perspective, just like the brother asked about. This is just my perspective. I'm not saying that anyone is right or wrong. And that's why I said, if it came to a camp, I would bring it out with a brother out there right now. I would go to a camp again today. If it came down to it, I would go today or any other time. So it's not nothing, deep from the standpoint of I just don't believe I should even talk to brothers in camps, or I believe you just wicked if you in one. None of those things. But just as for me and me joining and me staying in one, that's just my thing. All right. He says, I like being around other people and potential friends. Me too. Let me address something real quick while it's on my mind. This is another problem to me, as far as joining the camp. I think you brothers don't understand this one thing. It is not normal to have a camp that just breaks off into another camp, and then that camp breaks off into another camp. This is not normal. I think brothers are used to dysfunction. It's just like, as long as we keep the commandments. This is not regular, because again, we going direct to the scriptures, direct to source. Anyone that is directly tied with the scriptures, they're not going to be butting heads so much to where one camp got to break off and then that camp break off into another camp. Like, it's happened so many times that I've seen throughout these years where camps break up. And then now, again, I'm seeing camps that broke up, break off into another camp. That's not normal, brothers. That's not normal. That's dysfunction. You understand that? And that's probably how I would be. Like, I would probably be a brother that got into a camp, saw how things was going, and it broke off and then made my own. And what was the point of doing that when I could have just either started my own myself or just not ever join one? Because I know I probably would be one of those brothers. Before I even join, I'm just telling you now, I'd probably be one of those brothers that would do that. What's the point, of doing that? Again, that's like, we just get used to the dysfunction. That's almost like making and breaking up with different exes. You keep getting married and then you break up, and this fourth wife, she really the one this time, Mark. I'm telling you, this is one. I mean, that's what essentially was happening here. We just keep going to the next thing. That's dysfunction. I know I said it like 4 times, but it is. I'm sorry to be the one that tell you this, but that is dysfunction. That's not normal. Because again, if you really about the scriptures and someone else is, and you going direct to source, there's nothing to argue with. You can only talk about the scriptures. There's nothing to disagree with. And if the quote unquote elders in the camp is the ones going off that cause you to break off, then that just lets you know a little bit more about the camp system in general. For every brother that break off from a camp, there's 50 other brothers that saw the same nonsense that just decided not to do it. They're just turning a blind eye to the red flags that they see and then they notice from that elder. Okay? Just so you know that. It's not normal. That's not that's not how we supposed to be getting down. Now, in this here world here in Babylon, I'm not saying these things just won't happen, or every brother gonna see eye to eye. I'm not saying that either. But hypothetically speaking, that's how it's supposed to be. If you about the scriptures, there's nothing to argue about. There's nothing to fall out about. There's nothing to leave a camp about. But that's the problem. A camp, this is another thing that I'm about to drop. A camp is a man-made system. There are no scriptures that would constitute what we call today as a camp. These are going to sound like curse words to a lot of brothers, and I understand that because we have created an environment when it comes to camp that you just can't say nothing about it. You can't say nothing about camp, or you just a wicked Negro. You can't say nothing, nothing about camp, or you just going off, or you just a camp hater, or you don't really believe in Yahweh Shai and this and that. Okay. You trying to say the white man, all this other stuff. Okay. That brothers, the type of assumptions brothers make, but I'm none of those things. Okay. I just said I would bring it out with a brother in camp right now. I'm not saying that because it sounds good or I'm trying to, court some type of favor. I'm not. I don't care about none of those things. I mean, if I say this and a brother don't rock with it, then it is what it is to me. I really don't care what they think on an individual level. Just from the standpoint of this, I don't care. So I'm not saying it to sound good. That's just the truth. I really would, because I don't have any animosity against camps or any individual in any camps or nothing like that. So just want to make that, you have to say that because this is the environment that's been created around camp that you just can't say nothing. But it's such a touchy subject that people just walk on eggshells about for whatever reason. But anyways, back to the point. Yes, camps are man-made. All right. Camps are man-made. There is not one scripture that will tell you that we have to create what's called a camp, the modern day version of camp, because in the time of wilderness, a camp was literally a camp. It was not an organization where we had shirts with logos on it and we met up and everything. Okay. A camp was literally setting up camp to like an actual camp intent. Like what you think of, like what the world thinks of camp is more similar than what we call today as camp. All right. There are no scriptures that tells you that being in a camp is a part of the statute, laws, and commandments. And when I mean that is you just have to know that and accept it and not put it on the pedestal. That's what I mean by that, because we know that there were no Toyota Corollas in the scriptures either, and that's man-made. But you need it to get to and fro, so it doesn't make it a sin because you're driving something that's not in the scriptures. So I'm not saying that if you in a camp, you're doing something man-made from the standpoint you're in sin. I'm just saying that since you know that is a system that men has created, treat it as such. Most men put camps on a pedestal. Join a camp, hashtag join a camp, hashtag camp life, camp this, join it. It's always some camp this. I mean, brothers be putting on a pedestal. And that's why when something doesn't go right within a camp, a lot of brothers, end up breaking off and joining their own. But a lot of brothers just fall out the wall completely. Now, we know you have to have a weak spirit in order to be mad at a camp and then just fall out this wall completely. I get it. I'm not saying that that's the case. All right. All I'm saying is that that's the level of the pedestal that they put their organization on, to where now they associate the Bible with the camp. And that's what I'm telling you, that there has to be a separation between the Bible, all right, and your camp. When you start viewing those things as the same, that's when you start putting it on a pedestal, which could lead to idolatry, just like the Christian does with church. That's why when you tell them church is wicked, you can't understand why they don't see it. And it's because they're connecting the Bible with the church and the church with the Bible. So if you say the church is wicked, they're going to, since they associate that with the Bible, they're thinking in their heads subconsciously that you're saying the Bible is wicked or the Bible is wrong, because their pastor has given you an understanding of the words in the scriptures. And since they believe that's true, and you talk about the church, you then talk about the pastor, and you're now talking about his interpretation thereof of the scriptures. Therefore, they get offended. That's all it is. Like you have to understand how these things work psychologically and spiritually. And I understand that's exactly how a lot of Israelites look at camp. They are associating that with the scriptures, with the truth, with Yahushua, with the Most High. Therefore, you say something about camp, they immediately just get flustered. We should be able to have these open conversations about camp or about this situation without brothers just falling out about it. Say you say the first thing about camp, oh, this brother hated this brother trying to I bet he got a white wife, all this other stuff. And I've heard all these things said to me. I've been called a camp hater before and all these other things, and it's just like, man, you just don't get it. I ain't even said nothing about your little stinking camp. I'm just playing, man. And no disrespect to nobody that's in camps because it is what it is, man. I think that I've been harping on a lot of the things that I don't like, but let's talk about some of the things that I do like. Like the brother said here, I like being around our people and potential friends. I believe that there's a much greater chance that you can go in and find someone that, in a quote unquote camp that end up being a lifelong friend than not, or enemy. So that's a beautiful thing. And having just, quote unquote, like-minded, let's just keep it simple. I told you my kind of definition and my perspective on the word like-minded, but either way, just being around other like-minded individuals is a blessing, and being able to congregate is a blessing. There's so many different things that come with that. It's like having a gym partner. You're more likely to have success if you have somebody else in the same walk, right? So these brothers and sisters can keep you accountable. Speaking of sisters, you may be a brother that's unmarried and you find your wife at the camp. That's a blessing, that she brings forth your children. That's a beautiful thing. You could, learn things that you never would have learned by yourself. There's so many different blessings that can come from a camp. So let's not get it twisted here. Just because I'm bringing nuance to something don't mean that there's no good. I'm just negative about it. It doesn't mean that. It just means that I'm bringing out everything except for just acting like it's all, all great, which a lot of brothers do. They be on both sides. Either they only got things to say that's negative or quote unquote bashing camps, or they just act like camps is the best thing that ever happened. And there's just nothing going on when the evidence is there and it's clear. Again, all these camps breaking off, that should let you know exactly what you need to know. But y'all just look at it and just ignore it. If you broke off from a camp, I mean, you don't get it. It's right in your face. It's let you know that this obviously is not something that was of the Most High. Just wouldn't be no way this would happen. Okay? You get that? Like the scriptures don't break. It's not like you just wake up, oh, dang, the scriptures broke. I can't follow the scriptures now. That's how it is with a camp. If the camp was what it's supposed to be, then you wouldn't fall out of camp. There'd be nobody falling out. If the elders of camps were actually appointed and ordained by the Most High, then there wouldn't be no breaking of it. But in this time that we live in the fulfillment of prophecy, we're not in that time. Okay, we're not in that time where, we're not in the time where we have appointed elders, where we have appointed deacons, where we have appointed pastors, Levites, or what have you, or whoever is supposed to be head over the church. Church meaning not the church system of building, meaning a collecting of or gathering of Israelites. We don't have those things right now. So you're going to have men that have been amped up as leaders, but they actually not. I don't know why that's so hard to understand, but that it is what it is. Okay. Let's keep going because this is also a yap session here. But, I just feel like we can't talk about these things normally. So we got to get out there. It was good being able to communicate with the elders about other aspects of history and the scriptures. But I do recall you explaining how you must question certain doctrine and scrutinize your allegiances. Yes, I definitely believe in that all day, every day. You should always scrutinize your own family members, friends, or whatever all the time if they're giving you reason to do so. You have to question their loyalty and who they actually are. All right. But this is beautiful, being able to communicate with elders about aspects of history and scriptures. I do believe that to be a good thing. And going back to like accountability, if you're a brother that need that, and I mentioned gym partners too as well. Some brothers can go to the gym by themselves. They need no external motivation at all. And then some brothers, they ain't gonna go unless somebody there with them for the most part. They really need that. And when it comes to the scriptures, some brothers, they need to have other brothers around them, where other brothers, they don't really have to have somebody around them all the time to keep them on track. That's just the truth. That's just how that works. I tend to someone to be on the latter end, where I just don't need as much external motivation to accomplish certain things as other brothers do. I don't have to be in a camp in order to continue to follow the statute, laws, and commandments. That's not a thing for me. And I have been like this for years. And again, that may be why I'm an entrepreneur. But either way, some brothers are not like that, and I get it. So it is good to be in that system if you believe so. If you believe that former part where you have to be around somebody to make sure that doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you need that accountability. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Just recognize it and do something about it, I would say. The brother said, any suggestions on how to approach this? I know I should likely put this aside and work out my own salvation, but I wanted to know if you had similar experiences. As always, many thanks. So what I like about this is the brother is just asking for my perspective. He's not like, what should I do? Or what would you do? And all this. He's just looking for information so he can make his own decision. And that's what we should be doing as men. You collect information so you can make your own decision. That's what a king does. We throw out the word malak. We throw out king, but that's what a king does. He gathers information from his kingdom per se, and then he makes his own choices. And that's how you make yourself responsible for your own choices. As a matter of fact, that's why I believe that a lot of brothers like camp, though, because they want to kind of hide themselves around other people. So if something go wrong, they could blame other people for their choices. All right. And that's a whole nother tangent I can go into. And brothers probably didn't understand what I meant by that, but it is what it is. I know what I'll be looking at. But that's what I like about how the brother, he worded this. It's just like, hey, any suggestion on this? And I feel what you say here as far as you saying, I know I should likely put this aside and work out my own salvation. But I mean, it's nothing wrong with, it's not that you're not working out your own salvation, I believe. So I'm going to go to my response that I sent the brother at the time. I said, Shalom, brother. I pray you and yours are doing well. Yes, in my time, I have spoken with many brothers that are in camps, because I have. For some of the more known camps like IUIC, GMS, and some other brothers that have created their own camps from some of the more known camps. The first thought I want to communicate is that I believe you should make your own choice on how you move forward based on your discernment. No matter what I say, KOJ 144, or anyone else, it must ultimately be you that makes the choice. Now, here's my perspective. See, this is how I view life. I view that it's ultimately up to you. No matter what your elders say or anyone else, you can't just dead out follow people to the grave, to the ditch, like Yahweh Shai said. All right. You have to gather information and then do what's best based on what you pray for from, the knowledge, wisdom, and discernment that you pray from the Most High to give you. All right, now here's my perspective. It's always been a no-go for me for a multitude of reasons. Saying this, it's going to get you in trouble here, brother. I'm talking about myself. This going to get you in trouble. I know that this reads like I'm a quote unquote campaigner, but I'm not. I just already laid out a lot of these things. I'm just going to read my response, but I think I've already kind of went over this, because I didn't even read over this before I jumped in here, at least not fully. I didn't, at least. And I already know this has been a year, but I share the same perspective as I did a year ago. All right, it says it's interesting, or I said it's interesting that you asked me this question based on a conversation I had just literally last night. So I remember this conversation that I had a year ago. What I'm referring to is a brother and I were just speaking about his congregation. Well, I said on his congregation, but about his congregation and how they couldn't come to an agreement on certain aspects touched on in the Revelation 20th chapter, or on Revelation the 20th chapter. And I told him how the main downside of being in a camp congregation to me is that everyone has to agree on the same doctrine on every single topic in the scriptures. And if not, it can cause division within the congregation. So that's just one thing to me that I don't necessarily rock with. I don't want to think that I have to believe every single thing down to the detail that another brother does. Now, you may say, brother, you don't have to, and you're right. And I've seen it work where that's not the case. But for some of the major camps, I would imagine that they would not like that, because the way I view it is, if you bringing something out, you teaching it, and then, that brother, say you literally bringing something out to someone, that brother walk off or something, and then you start teaching and you saying something different, and you're actually teaching to someone that's out there, they'll be confused. They're like, oh, I thought you said, like in this case, Revelation 20, I thought you said that verse 3 meant this, but now this brother's saying this. Which one is it? Then y'all going, you might kind of get into it. He believe this, he believe that. Then it just looks weird to someone that don't know what they're looking at, even though there's nothing wrong with that at all. Not at least in my perspective, because we may have different levels of understanding when we go down to the nuance and the details within some. We all believe in the Most High, and we believe in Yahweh Shai, but that's such broad topics. So within that, certain accounts, one may believe one thing over the other, and they both may have evidence on it. So I just think, though, in a camp setting, that could cause some type of division or confusion. I do. Even worse, this can leave less room for growth in the spirit and knowledge. I believe that. I believe if you are condensed, and you're stuck in a certain way of looking at things, especially, again, if you're one of the major camps that they have the way that they look at things built a certain way, then it's hard to grow in spirit and in knowledge, which, again, is why I use the word religion, because religion doesn't grow. It's a set of beliefs. When it comes to your knowledge and discernment, it's supposed to always grow, and not because you finding out a new weird doctrine. I think brothers be counting that as growth when they go to a scripture that's, well, you already know what's going on there, and you be like, hold up, this says this. Oh man, brother, this mean it just, I don't know. It's hard to explain what I mean by that from a standpoint of what is growing and what's just a new doctrine created out of nothing. But I can bring examples, but the point is, that's what some brothers categorize as growing, when it's really just you creating a new doctrine. All right. But that's, again, when you set in your ways on multiple sets of practices, that's pretty much just a doctrine, aka I'm gonna say AK, also known as, but you creating a doctrine and or possibly a religion. I can only imagine how many brothers are in camps right now that have a different perspective on doctrine than their camp, but they don't want to speak on it out of fear of being ostracized from the group. And yeah, I do believe this. I believe there's plenty of brothers right now that they want to kind of look at things a different way, but they don't want to be kicked out their camp either. This is my reason for not joining an organization of this sort. I believe you don't need a camp for congregating with like-minded brothers, and if you pray for it, the Most High will send brothers, even family members possibly, that you can keep the Sabbath and feast with. I believe that. However, congregating with other brothers is amazing. So it is. I'm not saying that you should be just by yourself and you just do it by yourself. I do truly believe that, and I believe that to my core. I do. So it's amazing to find other brothers, even if they may not at least start out with brothers that at least know they Israelites or whatever. You know, they may not be aligned with other things that you got going on in life, but at least that it is a beautiful thing. It is. I also believe that some of the problems with these camps stem from the foundation of the One West camp and their beliefs from many years ago. I do believe that too as well. At the same time, I won't say that joining a camp is single-handedly a quote unquote bad move or that it's a sin per se, because I don't believe that. It's just my preference. I'm not into spiritual dogma and hindrance of growth. I could go on and I may even do a lesson on this. You lied, brother, because you just not doing a lesson. It's almost a year. I may touch on this again. Well, there we go. I redeem myself because I'm touching on it now. I am in no way attempting to persuade you in any direction. If your spirit resides with the brothers you spoke with, go for it. It's just not my cup of tea. So I was making that clear. So if this brother came back and said, you know what, I did end up joining, I'd be like, hey, all praises. That's amazing. You know, it's just not my thing. Like, for example, why I mentioned me being a business owner. That's just my thing. You know, that's my thing. If somebody say I wouldn't start no business or I like one, but I just want to do it on the side. I don't want it to be my main thing, you know, my main source of income. That's cool with me. I'm not going to look at you better or less than. Either way, you're not better or less as a person, you know, or based on how you choose to make money or anything like that. All right. I just believe it's the way to go. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I just believe brothers should pursue to be your own boss. I believe that wholeheartedly. Matter of fact, my soul and spirit, I believe that that is the way to go. But all at the same time, I don't think you're less than if you don't do it, because I know that's just how I view things. All right. I couldn't imagine compromising what I believe to be true, like some of the topics you mentioned, just to say I'm in a camp. And what I mean by some of the topics that you mentioned, like when he talked about the Dorians and the Spartans, which I didn't really touch on that part because I didn't know exactly what he saw from that camp specifically, but also regeneration he mentioned, and also the Native Americans and Hispanics. So that's what I meant by like some of the topics you mentioned. So I couldn't, yeah, and I said that earlier. It's funny because I didn't remember writing this, but I couldn't imagine compromising those things just to be in a camp. I just couldn't really imagine doing that. Again, I'd just be like, nah, I'm out. If you have any other specific questions, ask and I'll do my best to answer. Peace to you, brother. So that was my response. And I just wanted to kind of touch on some of these things. You know, again, if you think I'm a camp hater because of this, then it is what it is. You're going to believe what you want to believe anyways. But I just wanted to bring my perspective on it and kind of go more into why I believe what I believe. So the answer to the question, should you join a camp? That's up to you. You know, I think you should if you want to, and that's really what you want to do. The worst case scenario probably is like at least you get the experience and know how it is, right? So other than that, I mean, you should be straight for the most part, Lord willing. So if you want to, at least join just to kind of see. And if you end up not wanting to do so, or once you get in, you see that it's not your cup of tea too, like me, then at least you have that experience and you know. But if you don't want to, I don't think that you should be forced to just because you think that you should. And maybe I should do another where I go over the scriptures that's been associated with the camp. It just be so much, brothers. It just be so much, like, because I needed to say everything I need to say on this one, and we didn't even go to the main scriptural aspects of it. So that would have made the other, if I did both of those things, it would have made the video 2 times as long. So maybe I'll do another one on that. But either way, Lord willing, this was edifying. Until the next time, I bid everyone a mighty shalom.